Well, well, well. Once again, Walpurgisnight is upon us, and that means Project Moon is here to throw some of the most complex drops imaginable in our faces to juice our wallets. And while I'd normally be making a community post on the main channel to talk about it, this time all 3 of the drops have 2 pages, which means I can't just throw 5 images into said community post and call it a day. So instead, it's 5 a.m. I thought I'd just take a couple of minutes to give my thoughts on all 3 of these so that y'all can get an idea of what you're getting into if you go for the polls, and have some fun talking about the state of the game while we're at it. Let's start off with my favorite drop out of all these, being Magic Bullet Outis E.G.O. I gotta say, I didn't really have any expectations for this one, but seeing it now, I probably should have, because while this E.G.O isn't gonna be bringing Burn back to meta levels anytime soon, it's definitely making Burn a lot more fun to look at, and probably making some Outis IDs with greater attack weight a lot more interesting to use. I think only Magic Bullet and Barber of La Mancha Land have multiple attack weight, but you'll probably get the idea of what I'm getting at soon. This E.G.O's main purpose is to support the ID under a similar name because it supports the Magic Bullet status and power that fuels Dark Flame, which basically allows Burn to proc anywhere from 2 to 8 times in a turn, or at least do 2 to 8 times more damage. On use, this sucker's gonna deal more damage for every burn on the target, much like the S3 on Outis. It'll build up Magic Bullet on her too, and what I think is really cool about this is that the exact attack it takes depends on exactly how much Magic Bullet Outis has at any given moment. The attack getting much more erratic the higher that number is, and outright killing her when it gets to 7, which is funny as all get out. It'll also give her some extra Magic Bullet after the fact too, and deal Dark Flame on all the enemies if it happens to kill, which is really leaning into Burn being this whole wildfire status rather than one that deals a lot of damage to a single enemy. Is that going to be very effective outside of some Mook fights? Probably not, but hey, I'll let it have its niche where it can get it. And I'm sure you're wondering what each of those attacks are going to be like, but before we get into that, let's take a look at the Corrosion, which is very similar, except it's indiscriminate, which is what you'd expect from a Corrosion. But also on hit, it does a little bit extra burn count, meaning that Burn is going to be a little bit more consistent. I, for one, don't feel like Burn needs a lot of help getting additional count, but I suppose it's nice. While I'm also here, I think the passive is worth noting purely because if you put this on an ID that's not Magic Bullet Outis, you can still inflict Dark Flame with it if the enemy has Burn. Which means if you put this on someone like the Barber and use her funny big attack weight skill with a Burn team, then you can start inflicting Dark Flame on as many as 3 to 4 enemies. And I think that's cool. Is it gonna be the start of Bleed Burn? Again, probably not, but hey, I like the opportunity. So, with that being said, let's go down the line of what all these attacks do. The first one being the first Magic Bullet. It's really a basic pierce move, or rather a basic ammo move. One thing I noticed with these drops is that anytime they deal damage, a good chunk of the moves are going to raise the target's stagger threshold, so consider them all doing a funny little version of Tremor Burst, I guess. Then we've got the second Magic Bullet, which is a lot like its Library of Ruina counterpart. It's going to deal a decent amount of damage, inflict some paralysis, but also impact others than the target. So all you really have to worry about is trying to beat over someone in a clash, and then you're gonna deal more damage, just not to the main guy. Cute, I wouldn't call it strategic, but it's kind of funny. The third one is going to be closer to what you'd expect from a move like this, especially the S3 on the ID. It's going to deal some damage. Honestly, all of these say deal more damage except for the 6th one, so I'll just skip that going forward. But with the greater attack weight, I would assume at least 3, but we'll need to wait for numbers, and then deal attack power down. So this is good if you really just want to either do more damage or set up the enemy for lower power next turn. I personally don't find attack power down to be that potent, but it's an option if you want to deal more damage at the very least. Next, we've got the fourth bullet that is also going to get more attack weight, but it also has the regular bullet ability to deal a pseudo Tremor Burst and inflict fragility. So if you want to inflict the pseudo Tremor Burst and then deal more damage in anticipation of that tremor, then there you go. Fifth bullet, again, gains the attack weight, but that one, instead of dealing fragility, is gonna deal burn, offense level down, and defense level down. I'd use this one if you're a little more concerned about both clashing and dealing damage. Keep in mind, enough offense level down means attack power down, and enough defense level down means basically fragility. That's in multiples of 3. 3 offense level down means 1 less clash power, 3 defense level down, you're doing 10% more damage anyway. So with the attack weight, that could be pretty nice. 6th bullet is the wackest one that doesn't kill you. That one gets attack weight, has the funny ammo pierce move, and can even be used several times, which means it's probably the most powerful one for just dealing damage. However, that comes at the drawback at Outis next turn, and potentially onward, it doesn't say, I'm gonna assume this is one turn until otherwise stated, losing coin power and base power. So I would expect that Outis uses this as the last thing she wants to do, unless she's ready to die over it. Which brings us to the 7th magic bullet, which does a ton of damage, is very good at surefire killing because it deals even more damage if the opponent is losing a greater amount of HP. And as an extra bonus, which is very important for the IDs on this list if you happen to be comboing with them, changes the pierce damage resistance on the target to fatal before killing yourself. So it's a lot like Fell Bullet, except you're not gonna have to give up another ally. This is all you, baby. But keep in mind that pierce damage resistance on both target and self being changed to fatal, because that's gonna come up in the IDs. Again, this has some synergy with other ammo IDs, specifically Full Stop and Burn. I think what's gonna be fun is figuring out how you manage to build up your different magic bullets to get different moves you want, because in theory, if you do use the IDs S3, you can drop your magic bullet back to 0 if you use it at 7, risking attacking your allies, and then loop back around. But in reality, you're probably only gonna go through the first loop and take a strategic L for that, whether it's through the 6th magic bullet or the 7th one. So far, this is my favorite. I love the idea of progressing in fights more than just getting SP and spending it on E.G.O, and the passive does mean it can be fun if you're gonna use it on another ID with attack weight now or later, but that's all I gotta say about that. Next, let's take a look at the IDs, which are very hard to assess individually. Because these two are meant to be used as a team, I actually already made a tweet about it that I think sums them up very nicely. They're a duo. Full Stop Heathcliff stays back and charges power while Full Stop Hong Lu goes aggressive and loses his ammo as fast as he can. You wait a few turns while Heathcliff charges power before shooting a major blow to the enemy and then falling back a la Devyat strats. Hong Lu then reloads, and since Heathcliff fell back, he gets special moves now that Heath is playing support. Very nifty that. So what does that mean in practice? Well, if we take a look at Heathcliff's skills and then passives. Yeah, that's a lot, isn't it? Let's break this down one by one. I like to start with the identity info in the passives. So he gets a funny little special one-time use bullet from Ammo Atelier Logic. It is exactly 1 that he gains. Do not get surprised by what it says here. You only get 1. Then there's Concentration Sniper. It's a lot like Ailing Heart. If you remember Priest Gregor, you'll just gain 1 stack at turn end. That is it. It passively reloads. You don't have to do anything to get it. You'll start at 0, then you'll get 1. Or you'll just start at 1 and then at turn end becomes 2. There's another passive for melee support. If you remember Ishmael, Pequod Ishmael's ability to get an assist attack by attacking an enemy, and there's a % chance that an ally will use their S1. It is a lot like this, except this is specifically for Full Stop Hong Lu, and rather than it proccing when Heathcliff makes an attack, it's when Heathcliff uses a defensive skill and gets attacked. So it's kind of revenge to strategically attack someone who's going on the offensive. It's a nice little perk. And then Overwatch Assignment, this is basically Heathcliff's Devyat strat. It's where he retreats from the encounter and goes to the back. This one doesn't really mean too much unless you have the Hong Lu. Just know that if this guy gets to 0 ammo, he is totally out of the fight, or at least goes to the back of the line in a chain battle, and while he'll be back and will reload his ammo, this means a lot more for Hong Lu, but we'll get to that. He likes to build up poise count more than anything else, mainly because it is all to charge up for the S3. This guy really wants to charge slowly, get more powerful over time, and then either go for the bullseye or use his special S3 with his special ammo, which is the same thing, but probably stronger. At the encounter start, the guy gains Pierce power up. He doesn't have to do anything. He just has it, so imagine a +1 on any attack skill flip that comes up, and if you have his passive, which will need E.G.O resources on deck, he will not only gain haste based on poise, and if you keep using him as intended, or at least I see as it's intended, and keep using the evade, he will keep building more poise, both by using the evade itself and from the passive giving additional potency. So again, the way this works, you want him to build up that concentration to prepare for the S3, that's done through the passive, that's done by using the defensive skill. And then you have the S1s and S2s. The S1 is going to spend some ammo, that is regular ammo, we do not know how much he gets, but he has some that's not the special ammo. It gives him haste, and it gives him poise count. Again, that's going to be very important because the passive and the defensive skill give him poise potency. Moving on to the S2, this is what I would recommend using if you are trying to play optimally, if you are going to prepare to use the S3. S1 and evade are used to just charge him up, and probably to build SP. The skill 2 headshot with the 1 coin I would recommend doing if you are trying to build more poise potency so that you can get ready to use the S3, because this one starts to deal a bit of damage, similar to how the Sank Association does by going faster, and gives him both poise and poise count and haste. That haste next turn is going to be more important because this guy does have a certain level of Sank skill, where he will just start dealing more damage the faster he is, especially if the opponent is slower. There is also some Pierce Resist down being done on crit, which is very interesting because this is not fragility, this is resist. If you remember from the Magic Bullet E.G.O, that turns the enemy's Pierce Resist to Fatal. That's that little percentage you see. And these IDs will proc based off of that. So let's imagine you already charged everything up. You've got his poise, you got him a lot of poise count. Well, then we've got the skill 3, and I'm gonna skip all the way down to the alt skill 3 because you're already gonna have the special ammo, and these skills are basically the same, except I imagine the base power and coin power are gonna be different. So what I'm about to read to you is true for both versions of the S3. So if he is faster than the enemy, he's gonna deal more damage. Again, this is just Sank strats. He's gonna get more poise, potency, and then he's gonna consume all of the concentration. Remember, you build that once per turn and get a little bit extra from using the evade. And when you consume it, you're not only gonna get the potency, but you're gonna deal more damage and get more count after the attack. Jury's out on how much that's gonna matter. But here's the kicker. It also does more damage on a crit, but when it does damage, it'll also multiply that by the target's pierce resistance. Assume that you've done this after headshot and lowered the pierce resistance, or you've had assistance lowering it more based on what the Honglu ID does, or the Outis ID used her 7th bullet and set that sucker to fatal. You're going to be doing a significant amount more damage, and if you happen to get that crit, again, 20 is the magic number for it, you'll consume even more poise potency, turning it into damage. You're literally turning the extra poise into more damage. I'm looking at the skill one more time. There's at least 1, 2, 3, 4 different factors that will lead to increased damage percentage. If that leads to 200% on top of the pierce resistance, this can be a real heavy hitter. And again, that's the purpose here. This Heathcliff wants to start slowly and then ramp up. I see the challenge being getting SP up because he is starting to just be rewarded by using the combat poise evade that's up here rather than clashing. So you might need to give him some support with like a Fluid Sac or a Yasunyata. Actually, Yasunyata is already Heathcliff, so you'd want someone else to do the SP healing, or risk it with the skill 1 and skill 2 to build that up over time, but he is a slow burner meant to build towards a powerful attack. But I would be remiss to not mention the alternative defense. If you run out of all ammo, then he'll instead use taking cover, which is the clashable guard. I wouldn't make too big a fuss about it being a clashable guard, that's just a nice perk, but it will make Honglu use a special move called melee support. Think of that as a skill 0 kind of move, which just happens if Heathcliff asks for it to happen. If Heathcliff is attacked while using this, Honglu will then use that melee support afterward, dealing some damage, and hey, if you win the clash with the clashable guard, you inflict some pierce resist down, which these units like, as does anyone with pierce. But again, you're going to gain more concentration sniper, and since you are using taking cover when you are out of ammo, very likely he's just going to run away, I believe it's certain actually, and go to the back. But he will get maximum concentration sniper and pierce power up upon returning, which means that alongside that and a reload, you can go back to use the skill 3 again. You'll just be using the less powerful skill 3 instead, but you'll stay on the offensive more often. And staying on the offensive is very topical because that brings us to the Hong Lu. If Heathcliff is the one that's meant to slowly build up and support before giving a big blast and running away, Hong Lu is the one that is just all damage all the time, not even slowing down that much when running out of ammo. You'll see what I mean soon. Let's start with the passive, which is exactly what I mean when I say he's not going to worry about running out of ammo. When flipping a coin that consumes ammo, even when out of ammo, the attack does not get canceled. The affected coins on hit effects just don't start, so you're still going to deal damage. This is basically having Rabbit Heathcliff, after he runs out of ammo, still using those 3, 4, 5 coins, just not inflicting bleed, just not inflicting fragile. It's still going, which means the more coins it has, the more it's gonna build damage-wise. And that was a Season 1 ID, this is a Season 5, you get the idea of how good that can be. What's also interesting is the tactical fire support, which is like the yin to the Heathcliff's yang. Heathcliff gets more powerful, or at least more support, if Hong Lu is on the field, mainly through that melee attack. Hong Lu gets more powerful if Heathcliff is off the field due to retreating, or just set as a backup unit. The skill 2 and skill 3 get more powerful, and also if you have the Sin resources, both for the better skill 2 and skill 3, and for what's coming up, he's gonna get more poise count, if you have enough poise potency, which put differently means that Hong Lu just has to focus on building poise potency and can get poise count without having to fuel it himself. He just needs to get that greater percentage chance up and he can sustain that sucker, which is pretty nice, I think. He also has an ability called Target Spotted, which is a lot closer to the Pequod Ahab ID's ability, except it makes Heathcliff use his skill 2. There is no special skill for this, it is just his skill 2, which is a single coin skill, and Hong Lu's skill 3 will just tell Heathcliff to use it. There's no percentage chance like there is with Ahab Male's assist attack. Heathcliff will just use it on the skill 3. Although the skill 2 on Hong Lu will make it a percentage chance. And then lastly, Hong Lu can reload. He doesn't get special ammo, he just gets regular ammo, but he can more easily reload it. So let's take a look at the skills, and oh boy, that is just Manager Dawn clad in blue, isn't it? 8 different skills, and 5 of them are Pride. And I'm sure he is proud of what he's accomplished here. Let's just start off by giving a quick nod to the melee support skill. Again, it's called skill 1-2. You're only really gonna use that if Heathcliff is asking for melee support, because it's called melee support. But as you can see, on use, not only does he gain poise count, but he gains poise, and does a little bit more damage on a crit. Isn't that nice? It's also, I'm now seeing one of the few slash moves on here, which is funny because it's one that he just doesn't use ammo for. Let's take a look at the regular skill 1 on that note. So this one is going to not only gain poise count, which I think is good for a skill 1. You might not have the E.G.O resources that allow you to get that poise count from poise potency, so this is fine. But it has 3 coins and spends 3 ammo, which might not be the most expensive skill this unit has ammo-wise. It does give you poise on hit, which is nice, but this is more of a precursor of what's to come. Because if we go to target marked, you can already see gain base power for every X ammo about to be spent by this skill. We don't know how much ammo he's gonna have, but now we're not just saying to spend 1 or 2 ammo per coin. It's hard to tell how much it's gonna be because it looks like it's going to be several. So he'll get some poise, he'll deal more damage, assuming the ammo's there, and that will compile on a crit. Same goes for the 3rd coin, but then that also inflicts bind and attack power down. Keep in mind, Heathcliff likes it when he is faster than the enemy. So this works into that Sank strat. In general, I think this duo would be very much at home on a Sank team. Very conveniently, none of the IDs are on Sinners that also happen to be in the Sank association, so Pierce is gonna be eating good here. Which brings us to Full Stop to Life. I'm gonna go over the combo skills probably last, but on this one, it also will give Hong Lu more poise potency on use, which is exactly what we want. Clash Win will give the poise count, which I guess is nice, but I think a little frivolous. Who knows? I guess if you're going to be using so many coins, you will still want to keep that count up. This is basically a reaction anyway, even though I've already read this, but I'm very curious how often this guy's gonna crit. Probably a lot. But as you can see, Full Stop to Life has the similar bullet pseudo Tremor Burst effect on the first coin and second coin to raise the target's stagger threshold based on the damage. And then if the target is staggered, you'll deal even more damage on crit, inflict Pierce, Fragility, and Bind, which yum Heathcliff loves, and I'm sure that's gonna work well if he wants to use his fancy skill 3 next turn, specifically Heathcliff's, not Hong Lu's. Before going on to the combo moves, we've got the defensive skills, combat poise. It just gives him poise. It just gives Hong Lu more poise. It's all poise all the time. Count is gained by having poise. That's all you gotta worry about. However, if you are at 0 ammo, because I'm sure Hong Lu's gonna run through that quickly, it turns into a clashable counter, which again, going through the melee themes makes sense, deals more damage on a critical hit, again, all poise potency all the time, gives you the count, and most importantly, reloads. We are coming back to that reload very soon, I assure you. But my assumption here is that what you would want to do with this team is try and again, build Heathcliff's concentration as much as possible, and slowly, maybe not so slowly, but surely draw out Hong Lu's ammo so that it's just used up, and then once it's used up, use the defense/counter on Hong Lu, and then have Heathcliff take the shot with the S3 so that he goes into retreat mode and Hong Lu reloads ammo, because that's going to cause Hong Lu to not only give Heathcliff his greatest chance to be useful with that shot, but afterward it gets some very special effects. The skill 2, combo target marked. Both of these are basically the same thing, except they add a 4th unbreakable coin on top of everything. And when I say the same thing, the moves are just about the same, except they have a clash-lose benefit in addition to their last coin, which gives you final power, bit of a consolation prize. So I won't go over exactly what they all do again on the first few coins, but the 4th coin on combo target marked will deal more damage on critical hit. Very common poise skill, but it's nice, and if it's going to be like, +3 rolls, we don't even know if the numbers are going to stay the same on these. Keep that in mind. That could be very powerful. Again, imagine R-Corp Heathcliff. That could get as high as 13, 23, who knows, but do that with more damage on a crit, and that can skyrocket fast. Then there's combo full stop to life. Again, same old story. Unbreakable coin, deal more damage on crit, but what I really like is that you're going to deal more damage based on the enemy's Pierce resistance. Again, these guys really like to inflict Pierce Fragility, this 3rd coin even inflicting it right during that turn, and then you're going to further drop it. You might even be able to get Pierce Fragility to be like 2.1, 2.2 if you do this on the right enemy, or after doing it with 7th bullet, Magic Bullet Outis. I don't really think you're gonna do that. I do think it's a funny build, though, that they wanted to implant in our heads, but it's gonna be a lot of damage. So again, if you're going to get any of these, the IDs are much more useful when put together. I personally find that the Hong Lu is probably more effective if you want a utility, because he's just doing all the damage all the time, building poise. You don't even have to worry about count as much. Once you get past 20 poise, that's it. You're gonna be critting all day, all the time, refueling that ammo with the clashable counter when it's out. It's a lot like E.G.O, just replace a sinking build with a poise build. It's there, but I find that not quite as interesting. Like, even the support passive, it's gonna deal more damage with skills that spend ammo. That's nice, all damage. I've seen a lot of IDs that deal a lot of damage. I'm kind of bored of that. This is in some ways a lot like Manager Dawn in my eyes, which just does a lot more damage, but at least the strategy's a little more useful and isn't too samey, unlike with the other Blood Fiends. That's my bias. You might feel differently, and that is fine. Personally, I like the Heathcliff idea more, because both the Magic Bullet and Heathcliff drops work for making you, rewarding you rather for patience. I like the idea of being rewarded for letting a unit build up over time. You kind of figure out how you're gonna build the SP with this guy, although I imagine it won't be too hard since you can use the S1 and S2 before going for the S3, and just letting that happen while he builds concentration, and working out timing with Magic Bullet Outis. I think these two are very fun, that fit into the theme of Season 5 being, well, we've gotten up to 45 SP, let's get a new resource that we can make use of to get more creative with. At least that's the pattern I am noticing for what we have. I don't know if this was very helpful to you guys. I hope this explained everything I could well. If it did go well and you want to see more, just let me know. I know there are a few other YouTubers that do this. I imagine they're gonna do it better, but hey, I'm having fun. It's 5 a.m. I'm gonna just try whipping this out really quickly so that y'all have something to enjoy instead of my regular update, and I'll keep getting on that gameplay criticism video, hopefully around the 25th. Y'all take care, goons. Enjoy Walp. Best of luck.